Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Fun football is back, and I, for one, can't wait for it to extend through the weekend. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Just a smooth 4-1 victory for Arsenal. You know what you expect. Lots of chances, lots of goals, scintillating football, entertainment, nonstop, and a great win. Par for the course. Would expect it to continue this weekend against whoever we're playing. I haven't looked at the schedule, and I'm not sure it's anyone particularly relevant, but whoever it is, they should be worried. So we are here to tell you all about that, and here to do it with me is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Paul, you can find him on Twitter at Pause in My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo.
And Tim, you can find him on Twitter at Roberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And those of you, wherever you are all over the world listening to this, I hope you are doing well. I hope you're staying safe and happy and healthy and enjoyed the game. We will talk a bit about the game, but we will, of course, focus on that game at the weekend that I referenced obliquely. It's the North London Derby. It is a big game, so we do want to talk about that. So for this podcast, a little bit about the Europa League, a little bit about Derby, but I want to start first with Tim. Because, Tim, you did a thing. It says here, let me see if I'm reading this right, because I wrote it down. It hit me. So it says here, went to Emirates Stadium to watch football. Is this correct, what I'm reading?
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, weird. No, it was really nice actually, and there were a few things like I wasn't, and I'll try not to repeat too much of what I said on the Patreon pod, although I appreciate not everyone is a patron, but I had like a 1 in 10 chance of a ticket, and I got one on Saturday morning, so that was great, and I was kind of taking it in my stride.
Tim,
least because like this isn't. Yeah,
Tim, I just want to stop you. You don't have to hide the fact that we ponied up all our Patreon money and bunged you a ticket to the game. Like we can just admit that on mic. You had a 10 in 10 chance. When we slipped the brown paper envelopes are how it's done in football, mate. Like we can just admit it. Sorry, that probably wasn't worth interrupting you for. Go ahead.
I George Graham'd it.
They're in the pocket of big podcast.
And so I kind of took it all in my stride, not least because like I know that I'm probably not going to be back for the next home game. I'll find out on Monday, but again I've got a 1 in 10 chance in a ballot this time. So it wasn't like a big return to normality because it was only 2,000 people. Don't know when it's going to happen again. All things being equal, I should be able to go back once, maybe twice this season, which is great. That's a lot more than I thought I'd get a month ago. But it was really nice, and what some of the things I guess that I hadn't really realised until going to this game is just meeting up with my friends again before the game, and I've obviously been in constant contact with them because of hashtag technology for the last 9 months. But very few of the pubs are open at the moment. The ones that are, obviously you can't go in big groups, so we actually met under a railway bridge in 2 groups of 6 in accordance with UK law. You're allowed to gather in a group of 6 outdoors, and there were 12 of us, so we gathered in 2 groups of 6 and we drank tins of beer under a railway bridge like a bunch of 15-year-old vagrants with fake IDs, and it was great. And what was really nice was just talking to people and thinking, wow, it actually like it had stopped occurring to me that I hadn't actually seen you in 9 months because we're in constant digital contact. And I think that's the thing I really took away from the evening, the sense of like community that going to a football game actually brings. And the moment it really came home to me was Arsenal, really, really nice touch. All of the stewards applauded each fan one by one as they came through the turnstiles and kind of did a bit of whooping and all of that. And when it's your turn, it's kind of like, it's really nice. It's a little bit embarrassing. It's like you're walking up for an award or something and you're just like, yeah, I'm just making like a beeline for the gents, to be honest, because I've just drunk like 6 tins of beer under a bridge and there's no toilet there. So I'm kind of busting. And but that was really nice, and it kind of that I guess that sense of community again, and people singing again, and people, everyone was really excited to be there, even though it was a Europa League group stage game, and the first goal was celebrated like quite vociferously, and you could tell the celebration was about a lot more than going 1-0 up against Rapid Vienna in a frankly dead rubber Europa League game. So it just kind of, it really brought home to me that sense of community that you get as being a fan, and that it's not just about arguing on the internet all the time, and that there's more that, like, I know this sounds really corny, but there's more that binds you as fans of a club than there is that separates you. And I think it's kind of become easy to lose sight of that a little bit over the last 9 months, where the experience has been almost exclusively digitized. And it was lovely. It was really, really lovely. It's not normal. It wasn't normality, but it was a little window back into normality, and it felt like half a step back in the right direction. And that in itself, just separate to the football, felt really life affirming, actually. And you got this sense of camaraderie, like, wow, like the whole world's going through this and everyone's fighting their own battle with it, but actually, we are all kind of in our own way grappling with this situation. And I just forgot what it was like to be around a couple of thousand people again. Nearest I've come to that is like the supermarket, where there might be 50 people, and that those kind of instincts you learn inside a football ground. And I was listening extra carefully to the things that people were saying, and it just makes you laugh, like the stupid, useless stuff that we all say, like in football grounds, just like when you've got guys, and I'm not immune to this at all, going like, keep it tight, Arsenal, keep it tight, Arsenal, or, clean sheet, get it away, and stuff like this, and all this stuff that you think, in your rational brain, you think, well, this is all useless. They're not listening to you, and nor should they listen to you or I. But all these things you shout to make yourself feel better, and it was just really nice to reconnect with some of those things again.
I obviously I can't say what it must have felt like, but I can say as someone who watching it, even that little bit of injection of energy made a game that otherwise would have felt really pointless in some ways feel like more of a spectacle than the Premier League games have, at least for me. Now, maybe some of that was the fact that the football was quite fun. And I said this on the reaction pod, but I'll say it again. There's going to be some bad correlation causation talk that happens now, because there's going to be a lot of people who will immediately see the fact that we played well with fans in the stands and say it was the cause. Correlation is not causation, as we are told constantly. And I think every time you play poorly when 2,000 fans boo, and every time we now play well when 2,000 fans clap, there will be this presumption that that's what was missing. Actually, the football was always fine, or was always bad, or was always good, but it was the fans, and now that the fans are there, it's all restored. Don't get me wrong, the fans have a connection to the team and the fans feed off each other. I'm not denying that. I mean, we've seen away form become a lot more analogous to home form for teams without fans, so we know it matters. But I think we need to be careful about drawing conclusions, at least on small sample sizes with, a couple thousand fans in the stands. But it is great as a viewer at home to have that energy there. It reminded me a little bit of 1980s video games, though, because, Tim, the way you guys were all spread out, it was very geometric. You know what I mean? So it was like someone had digitally inserted fans in a very geometric, specific way in the stands. Very, very weird. Paul, just real quick about this game, I want to get into a few of the performances, but it was fun, and there is a tendency to dismiss these games because the level of the opposition is so poor. And Giant Gooner on Twitter made the point that they made 7 changes, Rapid Vienna, from the weekend. So this isn't even Rapid Vienna. This is Rapid Vienna B, basically. So yeah, they're bad. They're really, really bad. And to try to call this a litmus test, I think, is wrong. It is always a challenge to understand then how to take things away from the game and what it means for future games, but it doesn't have to mean anything. Are you able to just engage with this game in a way where you say, I'm not going to presume anything that happened on Thursday is relevant for what we do next, but I really enjoyed it, and it was fun to see the ball going forward. It was fun to see centrality. It was fun to see chances being created from different angles and positions on the pitch. It was fun to see some of the young players linking up, and not then make the leap to say, and they'll do it in the derby at the weekend, just to let the game exist sort of in isolation.
Yes, I am. God damn it.
Good.
I think I made the point yesterday. These we forget how talented all these players are in our squad. And sometimes you don't see it till the water level drops a little bit in terms of the competition you're against. I mean, Rapid Vienna weren't very good, and they gave us that extra yard all over the pitch. In the Premier League, you don't get that yard. These guys don't get a chance to show. It's kind of might be a little bit like going to watch the Harlem Globetrotters play now, just because they're up against, who is it, the Washington something or others, Cardinals or something. Generals does not mean that those guys don't have just amazing skills. So, like, there's that aspect of it. The second aspect is it was consequential in the sense of we needed not just a win, we needed a good performance. And I think, going back to your causation argument, I do wonder if having the crowd there on this game, I mean, it becomes a little bit background noise when they're there every game all the time, but there was an energy for me watching this that I haven't seen for some time. And of all our rope-a-dope games in the Europa League so far, this was the one where I think we played well for 90 minutes all the way through, maintained the energy. Everybody came on. You know, Danny came on. Even Willian looked to do something. He actually took on a guy and beat him. Like everybody who came on came to play for 90 minutes. So I think the crowd added a little bit here, and it's consequential that we needed an uptick in the narrative at Arsenal, something that made us feel good for a couple of days. The fans, the players, we saw some skills here. You know, Laka had a chance to play in a different position with a little bit of space and show off what he could do. And I mean, that screamer and the movement on it, I mean, it did him some good. I don't know if we'll be able to cash in that anywhere down the line, but a lot of these players will come out of this feeling a little bit better because, you know, you get to play in training, then you're getting 10 minutes on the pitch against a bunch of bruisers who are giving you no space in the Premier League. Finally, you get on and you get to play and you get to express yourself as a footballer. And I enjoyed watching it. And these guys can remind you what skills they really have that you mostly don't get. You know, even if you're playing well in a Premier League game, your chances to do something. You look at somebody like Pepe. Even if he's in okay form in a Premier League game, he might get 2 moments in a game where he can beat a guy, nutmeg a guy, lay off a good pass because he's only got 30 minutes or he's got 70 minutes and he gets his couple of moments. And here's a game in which these guys can really express themselves. It's good for them. And, I mean, the manager takes it very seriously. You can see that looking on from the sideline. So if any of these players didn't realize that it's still an audition. Everything's an audition to get into the first team. We're still looking for the cast for our starting 11 for the rest of the year. There are gaps in our team. We don't really have a 10. We have positions in midfield that are not exactly locked down. So, and right now at this point in our trajectory, the manager is desperately looking for players who will step up, midfielders who will score goals. He's been talking about that all week. Lacazette putting one in, playing as a 10. You know, he doesn't want to play with only one goal scorer in the front line and no goal scorers in midfield. If Smith Rowe stays fit, although he only had a few minutes here, he looked the part and he looked fit and he looked like he could play a role. So I think everybody here was auditioning for something. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
The hard thing, right? The level of the opposition is terrible, and it is not analogous to the Premier League. And we have seen every Thursday kids play well, and every weekend the team not match it. But if you want to have a meritocracy, if you want to build a squad where players feel they have a path to first team action, you have to let good performances in the Europa League mean something. Joe Willock earned a role in the first team through his Europa League performances, and admittedly hasn't really matched them, obviously, but that's how you want to do it. And so I think there's some players earning their role. I will say this, if you're not a patron, no big deal. We'll always have free pods for you. No pressure to do it. But if ever there was a reason that you might want to be a patron, it would be to listen to the Instant Reaction podcast that we did yesterday because, and I shit you not, Paul chose Pepe as his stock falling. I'm not kidding, and I'm not happy about it. I just want to be on record of that. So, Clive, let's talk a little bit about Pepe. I know some of the young kids are exciting, and that's something that I know you'll want to talk about. We'll get to it, but let's talk Pepe just for a second. There's a little bit of me that thinks maybe the red card is the best thing that could have happened to him. Some tension between him and Arteta, maybe an Arsenal career that's not going in the right direction, a lot of pressure on him in the Premier League games, and flashing some brilliance, but not quite getting it done. And then he gets this red card, and he seems to really want to prove that he belongs, and he sort of apologized, and the player and the coach have come together, and maybe there's some noises that maybe Arteta's realizing he needs to do more arm around the shoulder stuff than boot up the backside stuff with Pepe. And this is his second consecutive Europa League performance where he really looked at it. And again, it's lesser opposition. But like, if Arteta gets 3 Europa League games to see Pepe really being dynamic and kind of rebuild the relationship with the player, and he's taken out of the pressure of the Premier League, and he shows Arteta that he can do something individually that no one else in our team can, and that makes Arteta feel that he's got to integrate this guy, and that sort of rehabilitates a situation that was getting sideways. I mean, I'm grasping a little bit at straws because I'd rather have him in the Premier League than not have him, but can you see this kind of performance and the way he's responded and the removal of that pressure as being an opportunity to kind of hit the reset button in the mind of the coach and fans and player alike and get him back on track?
I think we're searching for a narrative with Pepe, and depending whether you like him or not, and what you read and believe, and it's when you got a player that's your record signing, you are searching for a narrative because he may not be reaching your expectations, and those expectations we have to ask ourselves whether they're fair ones. I think it's very unfair that he was labelled with that price tag, which I don't think was his fault, and we've got our suspicions whose fault that was, right? So, but there you go. So we have this player that's super talented, and now we have a bright young coach trying to establish a way of getting him to play. Now, it depends what you want to believe. I've heard that Pepe, just from reading things and listening to people who are quite well informed, that he is one of the biggest coaching targets of Arteta in all the sessions, and he's getting the most attention. And that makes sense to me, because you look at his talent, you think if I can get him to work, then that makes all our jobs look easier. And you hear other things that maybe lacks a little bit of seriousness on the pitch. And I saw this in this game. I think there was a period after half-time where he was taking a mickey. He was taking mickey out of them. He was trying some tricks. He was trying to beat the fourth man and the fifth man when he could have took a shot. And I look at him and think, come on, mate, just come on. Just be a bit more serious, because you're good enough. You're good enough to score in any game you want to score in if you're serious enough to stay connected to the game and stay focused and concentrated and look after your talent and make sure you understand where the risk is for your decision making and understand where you just need to be a bit more clean and solid. And so, yeah, from my personal point of view, I like this type of player, as you sort of know, and so I'm desperate for him to succeed. But I think sometimes, and you said it the other weekend, I don't think he's ever going to succeed to my expectations. And it's not because he won't be a good player. It's just all linked to the price tag around him. And that's a shame, because if this was a 35, 45 million pound player, we'd feel a lot different to what we do today. So I hope it's a turning point. It's a turning point in our minds, because we've created that narrative. But I hope it's a turning point because, we need him, don't we? We haven't got this prime age attacking player. In the last 2 or 3 years, maybe a little bit more, we've added Pepe and we've added Willian into the top end of the pitch. One is 32-year-old with a 3-year contract that we're still integrating into the club and people have opinions on. And the other one, the 24, 25-year-old record signing that's flashed in small periods. And so we need one of these to work, don't we? We really do, because otherwise we're the same attackers that are rolling out consistently, and teams are ready for us and they're stopping us, and our goals for column is telling us that we need some freshening up in this area. We need someone to get hot. So we put a lot of dependency on Saka, put a lot of dependency on Martinelli, because they're new, they're fresh, they're young, and we want something new. So that's a narrative we're creating in our own mind. So I hope Pepe succeeds, as we all do. And when he comes back, I'm not sure the game he's coming back into, but when he does come back, we just hope he does it in the Premier League and puts this narrative behind him of being a flashy moments player into being a serious Premier League player.
Yeah, and look, I acknowledge, Clive, I think you're dead on that he is a moments player. But like the funny thing is, if we were pushing for the title, you might say not good enough. You know, could Adama Traore play in a title-winning club? Probably not. You know, Zaha, everybody likes Zaha. Is he consistent enough to be in a title-winning team? But like, we're not a title-winning team. We're trying to push for top 4, and we don't have a lot of individual brilliance. And so moments may be enough for right now, for where we want to go. If the next 3 or 4 seasons is Pepe providing brilliant moments with, you know, I mean, look at Mesut Ozil, right? I mean, Mesut Ozil probably wasn't consistent enough throughout his career at Arsenal, but we did finish top 4 quite a bit with him there, and we did have some good seasons with him there, providing the moments in the smaller games. And that's the other thing. Pepe may be a guy who, you know, kind of similar to Mesut Ozil, doesn't beat Bayern for us, doesn't beat Chelsea for us, and to be fair, he's been good in some big games, but if he can start beating up the smaller teams, that would help us get where we want to go. Tim, Dom on Twitter, who is at DomC0801, of course he is. What else would he be? He also does the Buy the Visuals for Arsblog. I thought he had a great point about how we set up in this game, because we kind of did a box in midfield. El Neni kept dropping in between the 2 center backs to collect. Lacazette, I kind of looked at him as being like the number 10, but actually he and Maitland-Niles kind of formed a box, and Pepe and Nelson came more central to form that box a little bit. Not always, and Pepe was on the left, and we can maybe get to that variation as well, but it allowed us to have so much more access to central spaces as Nelson and Pepe, you know, there were dummies and overlaps and underlaps and a little bit more 1-2s, and I acknowledge that, again, all of the things we're going to analyze are related to the level of the opposition, which was dreadful, but just the spacing, you know, we've been saying for so long, formations don't matter, but like they do matter in terms of where you want players to be on the pitch in possession. And this was a lot more centrality. El Neni in the middle deeper, Lacazette and Maitland-Niles taking up central spaces in sort of the middle of the field, Pepe and Nelson taking up more central spaces in the final third. And you can do that more when you're not as worried about getting hit on the counter. I get that, but it did work a lot. So how did you feel about that sort of variation in terms of structure and how it did give us access to more central spaces, which, you know, I mean, the horseshoe of sadness that we've seen as our pass map in recent games, for lack of a better way to put it, like it was completely gone.
Yeah, I guess what's reassuring about this is that, you know, again, we can't say that this solves the problem, because I liked the 4-2-3-1 against Mulder, and then we played it against Wolves. It didn't really make much difference. But what it shows, at least, is that Arteta is alive to the problem, and like you said, centrality is a problem. And he's trying some things out at the moment, and I mean it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't things. I have mixed feelings about it, and I think you could view it either way. On one hand, you could say, yep, this is good, he's recognizing the problem, he's trying to fix it, and I guess it's results oriented, right? Because if that, you know, if that happens, you say, great, he was pragmatic, he saw the problem, fixed it, on we go. If it doesn't work, then it starts to look a bit Unai Emery, and it starts to look like we're just thrashing around playing a different formation every week. I have to say, I don't think we're quite in that territory, because I think he is explicitly trying to address some problems, and yes, I liked that box shape. It gave us more connectivity. I thought the 4-2-3-1 did that, and to be honest, I still think it can. I just think we didn't do it very well against Wolves, and I'm not really sure I understand why we were so intent on chucking crosses into their box. I still don't get that. And a few things Arteta is saying is worrying me a little bit. He's talked about the lack of ruthlessness in front of goal, and I've been thinking, that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing not many chances, and therefore everyone you miss is precious. But no, I liked this. I think it suited a couple of players. The first one is Reece Nelson, and we've seen him do this before under Emery. The first game of last season away at Newcastle, we know that Emery kind of liked this box shape, and one player who could play it under Emery was Mkhitaryan and Iwobi. They could kind of do it. Not outstandingly because they're not world-class players, but it suited them. And I think Nelson's another one like that. And he played it away at Newcastle last season, where he's coming off that right flank. I think that's kind of what he is. I don't think he's quite a chalk on the boots winger. And I definitely don't think he's a number 10. I sometimes quite like him on the left, but really the reason I like him on the left more than the right maybe is because he gets into this kind of half space, and I much preferred that, and so it suited him more. I thought he had a good game, and I've seen him play well there before. The other player it really suited was Maitland-Niles, and again, I've said many times, I just don't understand why Maitland-Niles in midfield has become, why it's not been tried more. Because I think he's played really well there, at least well there, every time I've seen him play that. I don't remember him playing badly there, so I don't, I'm not saying like with absolute confidence, yep, he's definitely a central midfielder, play him there every game. I really honestly don't understand why we haven't seen more of it. I can't think of a reason. It's like he does it like twice a season and does it really well, and then we go, oh, that was good, and then we don't do it again, and I just don't understand it at all, particularly with the standard of Arsenal's central midfield over the last couple of seasons.
That's the key to me, Tim, because do you think he's a good central midfielder, or do you think he is someone who has things that we just desperately lack in central midfield, so he becomes an option by dint of having those qualities without actually being good necessarily?
It could be, but I still don't think we've seen enough of it. But what I quite liked about him playing this like supporter running role, which again is just something we haven't had and we don't have in any of our other central midfielders. And to be honest, I never earmarked him for that. I thought, I'd play him like in a deeper role in midfield. But what I really liked about this is when you look at some of his qualities, that kind of the shake and bake, give and go type thing, and his ability to get around players, I think that's really well suited high up the pitch. Maybe less so in his own like defensive third, and I thought that was really interesting, like the way he was able to use that skill set, that nice easy glide and dribble he's got, and actually that works quite nicely on the edge of the box, not least because we really don't have any other players that do it, and I wonder if that's an experiment worth repeating.
Yeah, maybe so. I am of the opinion, and don't yell at me, that Maitland-Niles is not a good enough passer to be a regular central midfielder at the level we want to go. But you're gonna get your chance to yell at me. Just don't yell at me yet. And I think the reason I'm still fine with trying him there is, as we've discussed in previous pods, we have neither the athleticism in midfield nor the technical quality in midfield. So it's like, at some point, you look at El Neni. El Neni's a great example. Did any of us going into the season think El Neni's a plus passer? No. Safe, keeps it. Is he a plus athlete? He'll run around. He's got an engine. That's good. But just by virtue of having an engine and running around and being safe, he looks like he's got to start for us. And so that tells you the level we're at. And I think Maitland-Niles, he can carry it a bit. He is a shutdown defender at some level, so he can address some of those issues. He can run back towards his goal at a pace faster than a snail. I mean, there was one moment in this game, Danny Ceballos played two of the best passes I've ever seen in this game, but like he also had a situation where he tried to run once, and like I just got sad watching it for him. Maitland-Niles can run, he can carry, he can defend. All right, he's not a great passer, he just isn't, especially with that final ball. But no one else is, so maybe that's the solution. Clive, I'm going to do this. It is technically Paul's turn. So just put a pin in your comments about Maitland-Niles and how much you hate me for saying them. We'll come to it momentarily. But Paul, I just want to quickly go to one other topic. I think this is an area where maybe I think that the level of opposition does matter. I thought this was a great Lacazette game. And I think what we saw is that given the opportunity to get the ball a little deeper and distribute, he was able to do it. I'm really torn on what to make of that, because Paul, I feel for Arteta. He's tried Willian there, he's tried Willock there, he's tried Lacazette there. I don't know that I think Lacazette can do it at the Premier League level, but I do think this, and this is important, and I this is where I want to get your take on it. When he's tried Lacazette, he's done it as the false nine. So he's the striker dropping into midfield. When he did it today, there was a striker ahead of him too. So he wasn't vacating the central attacking space to drop into midfield in this game. He was just in the midfield attacking space, and there was a striker ahead of him. So how do you feel about Lacazette playing this role, not as the striker vacating the attacking space, but with another striker like Aubameyang in front of him? And could that be a variation that might work, that might unlock this solution?
So like you say, quality of opposition. But he played a similar role, wasn't the last game against Molde when he played as basically a 10. And that wasn't particularly good. He didn't really do anything. And before that one, I said, I liked the idea of it on paper. I wanted to see how it played out. And as you pointed out in the game, it didn't really play out. He didn't really do the things that on paper he might have done. This was good. Maybe he had a bit more space again than even against Molde. But I do think, he's a very technical player. He has skills. He maybe doesn't have the speed that you need as a striker now to threaten their line, to push them back, to make them think twice about him getting in behind them. But he's still got a...
And I just lost Paul, which may be because my internet is out. So we're going to find out.
Me too.
No, you lost Paul as well. Good. So this is the rare opportunity for me to let you in on a little behind-the-scenes nonsense. My internet, despite living in a country that you would think has a good internet infrastructure, is basically a styrofoam cup, a string, and another styrofoam cup on the other side. But in this instance, thankfully, it is not my internet. I was curious to see where Paul was going with that, but as he is not available at this time, it does give me the opportunity. Oh, you are back. Finish your thought, Paul. You just took a little siesta, recharged your batteries. Off you go.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, guys. I could hear you all clearly. Look, I think he's got a good eye for a pass. He has very much played the support role, but from the striker here. So it's interesting. It doesn't mean anything till we see it in a Premier League game. We don't even know if Arteta's serious about it till he tries this with Aubameyang as the out-and-out number 9 and Lacazette as a hybrid number 10/support striker, depending on state of the game or how they're lining up against us. It could be very interesting. I think he has enough athleticism for a number 10. And he definitely has the mindset of somebody who will create for others and lay off a pass. And he's physical enough to do some hold-up play in that space. He's going to be in the zone 14 space. He's not a guy, unlike Ozil when he plays the 10, Ozil will tend to go out to the channels, off towards the wings to make triangles. But Lacazette will stay central, and he's physical enough, battles enough to stay near the zone 14 in the tree of Burnley defenders and midfielders where they crowd you out. That's the difference between a Premier League game and these guys. 9 times out of 10, they'll just fill the middle. If they think you're an attacking threat, which maybe we aren't anymore, but if they confuse us for an attacking threat, they'll just block the middle like Newcastle or Burnley would against us and make us go down the edges. And Lacazette can fight in the middle of it. He's been so isolated as a striker. But with Aubameyang a hell of a lot closer to him, now we've got reasons to pass into the middle and connections to make. So we still have to call Arteta's bluff, or have Arteta call his own bluff, and see if he'd actually do this in a Premier League game and go for it, because it's interesting and we don't have those options as a number 10. That's why I was particularly intrigued to see Smith Rowe getting a run here. I think he'll make those runs into the box, and I think he's a finisher, maybe more than you do. But we then might have 2 options to play as a 10.
Yeah. I think my general takeaway is what I led into with this question, Paul, which is simply that the idea of playing a front 3 where the 9 drops into midfield to create the link and then vacates, that sort of central attacking space. You can say, well, it works so well for Liverpool. It's what they do with Firmino. I think, first of all, realize what Liverpool do. They win the ball back high up the pitch. They are playing the highest line in the league right now. So when their possessions start, they've compressed all their lines up the pitch. And so the links are very evident. And the two wide forwards who are tasked with kind of creating the centrality in the box and the chances, Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah are two of the best players in the league. And players who can succeed on the ball and off the ball. When you look at Arsenal, we start our possessions deeper than almost any team in the entire league. So when the 9 is dropping into midfield, he's dropping very far from the box. The lines become very disconnected and the forwards are very isolated. And that's where you wind up with the horseshoe of sadness. And so I think pointing to Liverpool as an example of a front three that plays more of a false 9 who drops in and has a connecting role doesn't work, because we are starting from a position on the pitch that is totally different from where they're starting. And unless we're going to press and start possessions in the attacking half, I think if you're going to play Lacazette in that role, there has to also be a striker in front of him like there was in this game. Whether or not you can do that in the Premier League without getting ripped apart, whether Lacazette has the ability to play in that zone of the pitch in the Premier League, that's another story. And I can't answer that based on Europa League. Clive, I want to start to turn the conversation towards the North London derby, but there's still a lot of meat on this bone, and I acknowledge that you haven't been given the chance to yell at me yet about my Ainsley Maitland-Niles takes. So realize, I think Maitland-Niles in midfield makes sense under the circumstances of our midfield being #bad, but I'm not convinced. And by the way, I think it was Arsene Wenger who said the player's future is as a central player, as a midfield player. So what do I know? But you want to defend your boy?
No, not really. You guys know what I think of this player, and I'll come on to it in a second. Quickly do Lacazette. Mm-hmm. Difference when we play Lacazette as our centre forward is when he receives the ball, his role is restricted by ambition, because he receives the ball square back to goal, and his whole team is in front of him, if you see what I mean. He's looking back towards our own goal and he can see his whole team, right? So his role immediately becomes best case scenario as a setter, or if he can roll around to one side and spin us out to wide areas, right? So in this role he played yesterday, if he can receive it on the half term and do a little wall pass with an El Neni or Maitland-Niles, when he turns around, he sees Nketiah, he sees Pepe, and he sees Nelson. So straight away, the ambition in his game is different. That pass he played through to Pepe for the square, I did not know he had that pass in him. None of us did. Because he never gets the ball with a scenario where he's got 2 or 3 options ahead of him. It's all about body shape for him and what he sees. So suddenly he becomes an ambitious player. Suddenly, the lack of clarity in the box when he's received the ball highest up and won't take his shot, it's much clearer from a deeper position. When he can see the sticks, he can see his options, and suddenly the decision becomes easier. Bang, goal. If you look at his Lyon videos, I keep saying it, look at them. They were all cutbacks. We were forward ahead of him, forward collapsing the defence, cutbacks, banging shots, penalties. Just have a look at it. Now, I did my research before he signed, thinking, what is he? And for me, he was always a second forward, a 1+1. And that's what he did yesterday. He did it really well. I'm not sure he could transmit at 29, but that's the role for him, to have legs around him and almost be the base of our front four diamond. And so on the Maitland-Niles, now, if these Europa League games for me, what they're showing me really is the future of what our team's going to be. And so if you're looking at the game, don't look at the system we're playing. Look at the dynamics of the players that are playing. We look a completely different dynamic animal. Football is a lot about not systems, but developing superiorities and numerical advantages. And to create numerical advantages, you have to travel from zone to zone really quickly and get to where the ball is, get around, overload, tip-tap, cross, goal. That's the positional coach dilemma. Really, that's his structure. But we have a positional coach with players that can't travel between the zones. We can't create numerical advantage. We can't spring. So we focus on the system. It's not the system. It's about game states, what we do at this stage of the game, what we do at that stage of the game. But to control those game states, to control those mini transitions, you need to have people who can move. They need to be able to move quickly. And what was really apparent, I know Tim was there, not many people were there, but I'm sure Tim was looking at that pitch, watching these guys just spring up the pitch, absolutely sprinting through the zone, sprinting through to get up the pitch. I mean, what Maitland-Niles did to create the third or fourth goal for Smith Rowe, I mean, that sprint is just unbelievable. I mean, just bang, I'm going. They knew he was coming, gets round, numerical advantage, can't track him, side foot goal. That does transfer if you have more players like that. And for me, the future of Arsenal has to be faster, quicker, more technical. And that's what we're seeing in these Europa League games. And of course, it's the level, but just look at the player types. Don't look at their position. Don't look at the system. The player types, they go, they run, they third man run. Smith Rowe comes on, he goes. Balogun comes on, he goes, he moves. 2 runs, they move well. And that's the basis of our future going forward. We have to move away from these non-running, sideways passing, unambitious players that are feeding into each other and restricting our style. These guys spring from each other. When one does it, they all start to do it. Then we become a really progressive team. I think that's what I gain from these games, and I think that's the future of our football. I'm hoping Arteta is looking at this and saying, okay, these guys may not be ready right now, but it's these types I have to buy going forward.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think if you don't have really skillful midfielders, like if you don't have Santi Cazorla, if you don't have Cesc Fabregas, if you don't have that caliber of player, the Alex Kleb type, even if you didn't love Kleb, he was skillful. I think Thomas Rosicky, Jack Wilshere in his prime, Aaron Ramsey, then I would always say you might as well put athletes in the middle of the pitch. I don't think Liverpool have the best midfield in the world, and I don't think you have to succeed. I mean, granted, it's gotten better with some of the additions they've made. But if you don't have Kevin De Bruyne, if you don't have David Silva, then get some athletes in there. And like Thomas Partey, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, they are people that will make it less fun to try to play through our midfield and who can turn the recovery of possession into attack quicker. Granit Xhaka, we've seen it, right? Like he can't do anything, but one thing he can't do is he can't turn defense into attack quickly. And I think so much of the modern game is about turning changes of possession into attacks. How do you do it? You can do it with a player who's great with the one-touch pass. You can do it with a player who carries it forward beyond the players that have just turned the ball over and starts attacks that way. Players that can get up and down the pitch, two-way players. But you can't do it with guys like Xhaka. Maybe you can't even do it with a guy like Dani Ceballos. I don't want to kill him, but you know what? He does seem to want the extra touch. He does seem to range around to try to follow the ball and then get out of position. I don't know. I did like this Maitland-Niles performance. I want to be clear about that. I thought it was really good. I wish he was a little better passer. Maybe he can develop that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think the thing with Maitland-Niles, it's really not so much his passing. It's more his, sometimes off the ball, he can turn into a defender and just stand there and look and wait for the lane and wait to go and get somebody. Sometimes you need to be a bit more metronomic, moving with the game, tracking a little bit more half pace. He's either 100 miles an hour or he's really on the beach. You know what I mean? Like Bob Wiley style. So I just think he just needs to create a bit more metronome in his game. But because he's so quick, he doesn't seem to be out of position too often. And I just think he needs more time. 5 games in midfield, 5 games as inverted right back. I promise you, if he can just get the trust, he's exactly the type of player we like. Whether he's in the first 11, I'm not saying he should be, but my goodness, he should never be out of the squad. And we should not, in my opinion, we should not be looking at Cedric in the squad ahead of him. That doesn't feel right to me.
Paul, briefly.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I see Maitland-Niles as being potentially a dynamite wide player for us, fullback, wing-back. But his future in our midfield, you guys have made a really strong case for us having a look at him. To me, Arteta has been trying to fix from the beginning one problem. The fact that Arsenal, for the best part of a decade, just get rips on the counter-attack, on transitions. And that's why he's done this somewhat slightly weird, clunky thing with our build-up from the back. Not that he wouldn't have done it, but he may not have done it as rigidly as... Now he's switched to this, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. He's tried that out for a couple of games. And we've got absolutely plundered by Villa and in our last game, just Wolves ripped us apart. And it seems like it's one thing to get beat; it's another when it seems like it's at will. When the opposition realizes it's on and have a couple of players who can run at you, they do it at will. Wolves did it, Aston Villa did it, and you need players until you come up with a more sophisticated scheme. You need players who can cover the counter, who can cover transitions, and Partey's very likely one of them based on what we've seen. And Maitland-Niles could be another player who makes those recovery runs. And if Maitland-Niles isn't doing it, I'm not sure who that other player in our team is who can make a recovery run. We don't have other athletes that would play deep within our team. So. Even if you have one, I mean, Partey gets a tweak and we're screwed. But sometimes you need 2-3 athletes in your midfield. So I'm not saying Maitland-Niles is the answer, but there are positions open here all over this team. If any of these young guys, if he's at an age where he should be ready to step up.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Look, it's also important, like, there is young and then there's not quite so young anymore. 18 is young, 19. This is the thing that we kind of miss, I think, sometimes when we just keep saying our young players are going to blossom into stars. Saka's still a teenager and he is a stud, and we all agree and we all see it. Doesn't mean he's perfect every game, but he is there. He's going to make it. These 22, 23-year-old guys who were still like, oh, if he gets his chance, he's going to explode. It's not to say that they can't get better, but like, they're not young anymore. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is not young anymore. He's Danny Ceballos' age, basically, right? Like, he's young in the sense that he can still get better, but he's not Saka. He's the idea that there's a leap in him, I think, is maybe sort of misunderstanding where players make a leap in their career. Don't get me wrong, you got guys like Jamie Vardy who drink beer under a bridge like Tim till they're 28 and then suddenly become a Golden Boot winner somehow, and then PEDs and stuff, and then you have defenders who blossom later, for sure. I don't know that I see like world-beating central midfielder, finds his role at 23 and becomes a star is a hugely common trajectory. So I think we should be careful. Well, just for 1 second, I think we should be careful because we've done this. We've watched Europa League games, got excited by performances. It hasn't panned out for us, and I want to be careful doing that. I want to enjoy the performance. But I do think sometimes the desire to see a future for our academy kids, once they've sort of passed the age threshold where a big future is likely, is a bit of an issue. Like, I want to see it for all of them, of course. But like, I'd be much more inclined to be giving Balogun minutes than Nketiah. I'd be much more inclined to be giving Smith Rowe minutes than, Willock and Maitland-Niles, if you catch my drift. And I'd like to bring Tim back in so he doesn't fall asleep. But last word on that, Clive?
I just want to say, sorry, Tim, I just want to say, you hit it there and find the role. It doesn't matter what your age is. We haven't, we as a club haven't found his role yet. He's played in multiple positions as a utility player, but we haven't found his role. He's played left wing back, left back in the 4, right back in the 4, right wing back. He's now playing midfield. Arteta mentioned he's almost like an attacking midfielder. He's a utility player, so I'm not saying that he should be a star. I'm saying that he should be in our squad and he should have more minutes than he's getting. That's my feeling. I'm not saying he's the answer to our midfield dreams, because I'm not. But I'm looking at him and thinking that's the type of player that should be in our midfield rotation.
Yeah, of course.
And that's
I don't disagree, because we have a need for his quality. It's just funny. Like, no one would think of Kieran Tierney as a kid who we hope comes good. Kieran Tierney and Ainsley Maitland-Niles are the same age. You know what I mean? Hector Bellerin, who we're like, he's washed, he's done. He's 2 years older. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not to say, by the way, that we shouldn't use him, that we shouldn't try it, that we don't need the solution, and that he can't come good, because he clearly can. I just think we get to a point where we still think of them as academy kids, and they're not really that anymore necessarily. Tim, I did mention 2 of them, and before we turn to the Derby, which we really, really got to do, and now the Derby preview is getting shorter and shorter as our window of time gets closer to closing, but welcome back into the podcast. Couple of interesting cameos here. I mean, a longer one for Smith Rowe and a goal-scoring one. Balogun just seems like he has something about him. I mean, do you have any frustration? I mean, look, Lacazette gets a start in this game. There's some players starting this game that maybe you say could have made room for younger players. Maybe Smith Rowe could have gotten on sooner. Maybe Balogun could have started instead of Nketiah, or ESR instead of Lacazette. I think they look bright, and it's way too early for them to really have an impact. But the number of useful games for these guys is reducing, right? Like we're running out of Europa League group games, and after that, once you get into January, all the games kind of matter, and you're kind of out of easy opportunities to give these fringe academy kids minutes. So would you like to see them both maybe get a start in the Europa League before that group stage is over? And how do you feel about their cameo and just sort of Arteta's ability to utilize these games now to really give those fringe guys a last look at some real playing time?
Yeah, certainly. So for Dundalk, I'd definitely like to see Balogun start. Now that like top of the group is done, for absolute definite, I'd really like to see that. And like you said about the window shutting, we've got a Carabao Cup game, but it's against Man City, yeah, exactly. And that's going to require a big effort and probably close to a full team, and that means that Dundalk will have to fall by the wayside in terms of that. And I think that Arteta, when he spoke before the Molde game about getting this over and done with over the Christmas, because of the congested Christmas period, I think he had an eye on that Man City game. I think he was thinking, I want to save some of my guys for that game, so I don't want them in Dundalk needing a point or something stupid like that. With Smith Rowe, so I do think the game was valuable for Lacazette because his form's been in the toilet a little bit, and giving him this game, having him score like a bit of a screamer, all fine with me. And Smith Rowe's probably not fit enough, or at least they need to take care with Smith Rowe on fitness grounds. And I did read earlier this week, reports from fairly well-sourced Arsenal journalists saying that he might go out on loan again in January. But probably because of the point you're making, and it's really unfortunate for him again that he's coming back to fitness just at the time where the games for him are kind of running out. And the thing is for Smith, about sending Smith Rowe on loan, like I've seen this player for the youth team, like talent-wise, extraordinary. And he came into this game, and we talk about like Rapid Vienna being a bit rubbish, but I mean, this Emil Smith Rowe, he's still a kid. He's 20 now, but like he was doing this at 18. He made very, very short work of Europa League group games. He already had goals in Europa League group games. Talent-wise, he has got it, and I think Arsenal know that. The question is whether he's physically got it, and I think that is what we will send him out on loan to discover, because we need to know whether his body can stand the rigours of weekly football. That's what we don't know. We know he's talented. We know he's not the finished article yet. We also know he's got a lot of things that we don't have in the team, and I'm desperate for him to make it, probably more than any of our other younger players, just because I think he's perfect for us. I really do, like in terms of his attributes. I was really pleased to see him come on and score a goal as well. Like when he takes the ball, he looks like a seasoned professional. The way he receives it, the way he turns and looks up and knocks it, like he doesn't play like a teenager, but he's still got a teenager's body, and that might be an issue. I really, really hope it's not, but that's what we've got to find out with him. Balogun, yeah, I'd really like to see him start the next game. I do see, the point still in starting Nketiah, just because he is still, in and around the first team squad, and they want, to give him games.
But is that just by default? Should he be? You know what? Is he so good that we shouldn't just give it to the maybe arguably bigger upside young guy and realize that Nketiah might be moving down the table?
So we're possibly getting to that stage. I'm not quite sure that we're there yet, because he's had 2 sub appearances. I don't think we've quite reached the stage where we know that for certain. And look, the schedule's punishing and the games come quickly. And Nketiah has a lot of first team experience now. And if Arteta needed a goal from the bench on Sunday, rightly or wrongly, you probably tend to just go towards the guy who's done it before. And And so, but definitely for the last group game, I'd really like to see Balogun. And also, there is a political reason for that. We want him to sign a contract, and for him to sign a contract, we need him to feel like there is a pathway for him. But at the moment, Nketiah is that player. And like you said, we've kind of running out of games to give to Balogun to consistently prove that he can be better. But I think we're reaching that stage, but we're possibly not quite there yet. What I would have done personally is I'd have brought Balogun on earlier. I'd have given him more than 8 minutes. I'd have maybe given him the last half an hour, particularly once Nketiah scored, got his goal in the first half. I perhaps would have liked to seen Arteta say, "All right, nice one, thanks Eddie, got your goal, cheers. You've kind of justified my faith in you. Now I'm going to have a look at this guy for give him a good 20 minutes, half an hour." That's maybe the way I'd have done it personally.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, I'm kind of the opinion that Eddie Nketiah is just kind of at that point where I'd be comfortable saying good player, nice player, nothing against the player, maybe not going to be Arsenal striker material. We're trying to get Balogun to sign a new contract. There's a lot of confidence in him, and he may not make it either, but let's move on the project and see what he's got. And, maybe try to see if there's a way to integrate him, convince him to get, to get that contract signed, protect the asset value at worst case. I don't know. I'd like to see him starting. Tim, I'll stay with you for a second. Enough about the nonsense Europa League. I think we gave it more oxygen than it deserves, although it was a lot of fun. Now we got to get back to the stuff that maybe is less fun, but could be even more fun. In your view, I expressed that maybe the North London derby is coming up at the exact right moment for Arteta. Agree or disagree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to say agree and I'm going to say that on the basis that I think Mikel Arteta should agree with that. I think if he's clearly got a lot of self-belief in himself that's a tautology. Yep. He's clearly got a lot of self-belief as a coach, and things are going a bit wrong at the moment, and he should be looking at this and saying, right, okay, I'm being questioned for the first time. How do I stop those questions? Win at Spurs. Simple as that. That takes you a long way with Arsenal fans. Win at Spurs. Particularly at the moment where perhaps they're riding a bit high and they're a bit cock-a-hoop. It would be, and we're quite the opposite. It would be nice to knock them down a peg or two, but yeah, if I were Arteta, I would be saying, yep, this is the game we want, and also because maybe he can default to some tactics that he's more comfortable with, and this is a game where I don't think, Arsenal fans, myself included, get so nervous and so anxious that really all tactical dissection goes out the window. I'm not going to complain about, if Arsenal win, I am not going to complain about the manner of it at all. I'm not going to complain if we win with 3 shots and we get an own goal or something. I'm not going to care. I'm really, really not.
Yeah, the win at Old Trafford to some extent. I mean, granted, exactly. I thought we outplayed them for a while, but
Yeah, but we still only had a couple of shots, and exactly. You're that's exactly it. You just don't analyse those games quite as much, and maybe he can default to something there, and there's less pressure on us maybe in terms of the fact that I think everyone's expecting Tottenham to win this quite handily, and we've seen many times in the past, sometimes to our cost and sometimes to our benefit, that quite often the form team doesn't quite eke out that form in the derby. And what a lot of teams, there's a lot of talk about Tottenham at the moment, and rightly so, but they play this counter-attacking style, and the thing they're going to find with people talking about them is teams are just going to go, okay, you're going to counter. We know what you're going to do. You're going to counter-attack with Kane and Son. All right, we'll let you have the ball. See if you can break us down. And West Brom did that and nearly got a point out of them. And, I wonder if we'll try and do that. But, Spurs kind of adapted their style a little bit this season, and now they're the talk of the town. And as we've seen with Arteta, it happened to us. We fell on this system, and everyone said, isn't Arteta great? Arsenal are revitalised. Now everyone's worked it out. And it will be interesting to see whether that happens to Spurs. I'm not definitely saying it will. And if it does, I would love for us to be the team that does it. and finds them out. So I agree with you. I think that this is because this is a game that has its own pressure, right? A pressure all of its own. It is separate from other results. Arsenal fans aren't looking at this going, but we've lost quite a few games recently. It's just this game. This is a game you get in isolation, for better and for worse, with Arsenal fans. And I do think that's probably a good thing for Arteta.
It's a bit of a razor's edge, to be fair, because the mood around the club and the manager has not been great. And losing the derby, especially if we lose it badly, could be a bit of a cliff, but it is an away derby. They're in the better form, we're in the worst form, and I think as long as we're in the game, people will be maybe forgiving, although maybe I'm giving fans too much credit there. Whereas winning it, and I'm not saying we're going to win it, but I mean, I think we could win it, and if it's a derby, you throw form out the window as it goes, and I just think that Arteta could use this. He could really use. It means so much to the fans. I think even to the players, they know it means a lot. And it just buys you that extra time, that extra patience to then go back to the hard work. Whereas, you play a Burnley and get a disappointing draw, or even if you get a win, nobody really gets worked up about it. So this can be a bit of a tipping point game in some ways. Obviously, there's a chance Thomas Partey could be available. I haven't seen the reports yet. I think he was going to train today, so I don't know if Arteta's come out and ruled that out. I don't know that you want him rushed back and then have to miss a long period of time after that, but having him back would go a long way. Clive, you're the coach. What are they doing that's working? How do we counter it?
This week's been a traumatic week with Spurs going top of the league and us looking terrible. And I almost had to go back to football church this week and see what it's all about, what Arteta was doing, to remind myself that our manager coach is not bad. And during my studying, I look at Spurs and see what they're doing. And I sent you a little note, Elliot, about Spurs falling into a back six, because we were looking at Xhaka and Tobias last week and wondering why they're in our back line. Well, Spurs do exactly the same. They're going to a back six with a centre midfielders with Sissoko and Højbjerg. They drop in, and what they do in front of them, they put Kane and Ndombele in front of them, and they use them as their breakout, as their escape plan. If you look at Ndombele, there's loads of videos of him rolling people, using his backside, turning people around and then springing. And Kane, you know what he's like. He's a golden boy, blonde England captain. If you touch him, it's a free kick, right? So they use him as an exit plan. He's very good at buying free kicks. But if you do allow him to turn, he flicks the ball forward to Son or Bergwijn. And what they're doing with Son is quite cleverly, they're using Son on the weakest fullback. So it'd be interesting to see what side Son plays, left or right, because that'll tell us a little bit about us. And so, or they might say put him behind the fullback that's actually really strong, like Chilwell, who then vacates that area, like I did against Chelsea, and tried to use the space that he leaves. So that'd be quite interesting. So what I would do if I'm Arsenal, I would stay away from Spurs' block, their square, actually go around. So actually the way we play the back three style and using the wings is the perfect way to play against them. Because if we lose it, we're not losing it in areas where they can spring, but we are going around their strong block, because Højbjerg and Sissoko, they are dogs. They can run around, they can tackle. So that's how I would do it. So secure players, nice deliberate passing from the back, bring them on, go around the outsides, and then develop our play from there. That's the way to sort of get around Spurs.
I think one of the things that we've been guilty of, guilty is the wrong word, but I think one of the things that we've engaged in this season is talking about the ways that the system can evolve to work the way we want it to work. I should let me get rid of the we in this and let me say me. I keep trying to picture this 4-3-3 that could work, or this more attacking formation can work, this more dynamic formation that can work. And I have to admit, as I watch it, I don't necessarily see the players there. I still think it's incumbent upon Arteta to find a way to do it. I do think these big games, Paul, give him the chance to default to the one thing that has worked since he's been here, which is back three, counter-attacking, building back to front, playing around pressure, doing all that. So do you I think everything Clive said makes a lot of sense to me. Do you think that Arteta will default to what's worked for him and that we will see essentially the cup final run approach in this game?
Yep. I think you guys have covered all the main points here. It allows him a tasteful retreat into the system that we've looked the most secure in a game we need to look secure, and that tactically the best thing to do with this Spurs team, what they want you to do is to come at them so that Harry Kane can look like a genius dropping in and putting Son through on our goal. The last thing we want done to us. So let's give them the problem of taking the initiative, get our structure back, get our confidence back a little bit, playing a format we like to play. But I mean, he's going to have a big decision to make up front and in midfield still. I mean, if we don't know if we got Partey or not. If we have Partey, even then it's not that easy. Who do you pair him with? They've got a very physical midfield. Now it does lead to us playing into that thing you love so much, our horseshoe shape. Even with Partey, we've seen where he can be the guy in the middle and he'll have a midfielder or two either side of him that's way wide. You know, Danny Ceballos to the right and Xhaka to the left, or whoever, basically playing on the wing, and we scoop out the middle. And we don't take them on because they're going to be far more physical than us, even with Partey in the middle. So it definitely pushes us to play the formation that I think Arteta would feel more comfortable on right now. What we do with our front three is going to be intriguing against Spurs. Maybe that's not the most important part of it, though. I mean, he's going to Aubameyang's going to struggle to have space through the centre. And so maybe playing from the wing, this is one game in which he's not going to have a lot of chances anyway. So you can put him back where he was. And now you got to work out, are you starting with Lacazette? You might well be. I guess he played 60 minutes in this game. And then on the right, it might be Willian. So then you got the interesting choice at left wing back. Is it Maitland-Niles or Saka? It's very probably Saka. But Maitland-Niles could be very useful in this game, or useful later on in this game, coming along and playing a more defensive role for us on the left if we're getting hammered and trying to hold on to a point or whatever. But I think you covered the main points here. This does lead us. The best tactic we have right now is probably the one that most suits us in any case. Give Spurs the chance or the challenge of taking on the initiative and see, give us their best shot. Oh dear, they just scored 3 goals. But anyway, give us their best shot and see if we can hang in there, hang with them and play it like a cup final and give it lots of energy. And we need a response. And so the timing's perfect here. This is the game you want a response with the energy. So it'll be interesting.
Look, you know me. I want us to attack, and I'm willing to sacrifice defense to attack. And I don't like the 8 shots per game football, and I don't want it to continue. It can continue on Sunday because you can't let them beat you 3-0, 4-0. You just can't. You can't have them running at you on the counter like Wolves were. You can't have them cutting through you like Villa were, like Leeds were. You just can't. So if we lose 1-0, I will be sad, and I will feel bad, especially if we don't have a go at them. But you can't get hammered by Spurs in the derby. You can't. So if he wants to keep it tight and try to win 1-0 or eke a draw out of it, like under the circumstances, while I won't love it, I will understand it. There are times for hubris and there are times to pull your head into your shell and be a turtle. And I'd say right now, you can't lose this game heavily. I mean, Tim, what was your comment? You just win the game, just beat Spurs. What was your comment exactly? That's it. Just beat Spurs, and that's just beat Spurs, right? But like my comment would be, just don't get turned over by Spurs. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, just beat Spurs is better, but definitely don't get turned over by Spurs. So I would say that I'm okay with that. And Clive has just typed into the chat, "Don't stress, chaps." So good. I feel better now. Let's leave it there. Big game. There'll be an instant reaction pod full of celebration and mirth on Sunday, and then a full pod on Monday, and we love you for being here. If you are a patron, we still have Scott's Analytics pod coming for you with probably a big look ahead to the derby literally within the hour, so that's coming as well. Tim's on Twitter. Stillberto, thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Paul's on Twitter. Pause my pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woo.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter and Gunner. Give us 5-star review and write nasty things about Scott. Don't, you know what? He's a nice guy. Don't write nasty things about anyone right now. COVID, all this. Everybody needs a hug. Write nice things about us. Give us a hug. Give us a virtual hug. And I would like to give you
things about Tottenham.
Yeah, write nasty things about. What do we think of Tottenham? Shit. What do we think of shit? Tottenham. In any event, we love you, and we will definitely talk to you after Arsenal 10, Spurs 0.